Paramahansa Bhagavata Shila Astika, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaisnavi Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shila Hari Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Yamuna Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. All glories to the symbol devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the symbol devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the symbol devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. So Hare Krishna, welcome everybody. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 2. Shabdasya hi brahmana esha panta Yannama nama bir dhyayati dir apartayi Pari brahma tatra na vindate artan Maya maye vasanaya shayanaha. So please repeat word for word. Shabdasya, of the Vedic sound. He, certainly. Brahmanaha, of the Vedas. Eshaha, these. Pantaha, the way. Yat, what is. Namabi, by different names. Dhyayati, ponders. The, intelligence. Aparte, by meaningless ideas. Pari Brahman, wandering. Tatra, they. Na, never. Vindate, enjoys. Arthan, realities. Maya, Maya maye, in illusory things. Vasanaya, by different desires. Shayanaha, as if dreaming in sleep. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. So please repeat. The way of presentation, of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. The conditioned soul is always engaged in laying out plans for happiness within the material world, even up to the end of the universal limit. He is not even satisfied with available amenities on this planet, where he has exploited the resources of nature to the best of his ability. He wants to go to the moon or the planet Venus to exploit resources there. But the Lord has warned us in the Bhagavad Gita 8:16 about the worthlessness of all the innumerable planets of this universe, as well as those planets within other systems. There are innumerable universes and also innumerable planets in each of them, but none of them is immune to the chief miseries of material existence, namely the pangs of birth, the pangs of death, the pangs of old age, and the pangs of disease. The Lord says that even the topmost planet, known as the Brahma Loka or Satya Loka, and what to speak of other planets like the heavenly planets, is not a happy land for residential purposes due to the presence of material pangs, as above mentioned. Conditioned souls are strictly under the laws of fruitive activities, and as such they sometimes go up to Brahma Loka and again come down to Patala Loka, as if they were unintelligent children on a merry-go-round. The real happiness is in the kingdom of God, where no one has to undergo the pangs of material existence. Therefore, the Vedic ways of fruitive activities for the living entities are misleading. One thinks of a superior way of life in this country or that, or on this planet or another, but nowhere in the material world can he fulfill his real desire of life, namely eternal life, full intelligence and complete bliss. Indirectly, Srila Shukadeva Goswami affirms that Maharaj Parikshit, in the last stage of life, should desire to transfer himself to the so-called heavenly, should not desire to transfer himself to the so-called heavenly planets, but should prepare himself for going back home, back to Godhead. None of the material planets, nor the amenities available there for living conditions, is everlasting. Therefore, one must have a factual reluctance to enjoy such temporary happiness as they afford. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimate Krishna Goswami Dhamini. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Dhamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Hare Krishna, everyone. So, in this verse, Prabhupada, in this purport, Prabhupada is mentioning how we have the different planetary systems. So, just like we have in the world, we have first world countries and third world countries. So, I grew up in Zimbabwe, which is a third world country. So, the standard of living was much more difficult than in first world countries. We have, like in Australia and like New Zealand, there's amenities that the government provides. Like if someone is not working and they are struggling, then the government, we have Centrelink or like work and income, which they have in New Zealand, where there's support. And here there's Centrelink, so also if someone gets sick, we have Medicare facilities and things like that. So in the first world country, that's kind of like a higher standard of living. And in the third world country, people have to struggle a lot. So sometimes we may question that how come some, we are in the human form of life, but how come some people are born in a third world country and are struggling, and some are born in the first world country? So we have to also question that whatever we did in our previous life, and because of that, just like if someone goes to university, and we study very hard and we make sacrifices. I'm not going to go and party. I'm going to utilize my time for studying. And then I'll achieve that degree and then I can get a good job. Well, that's the theory, that we'll get a good job. So one works hard and one gets the result. But if someone parties and they don't get the degree, so it's like that. In our previous life, if we don't qualify ourselves for a better birth, then we're born in a situation where we have to struggle and go up. Whereas if someone did good activities, like the person who studied at university, he has a better opportunity, he or she has a better opportunity to be successful materially speaking. So even in the human form of life, we have this choice whether we can elevate our consciousness or we degrade our consciousness. And it's no guarantee that we'll get a human form of life in our next birth. So in the Bhagavad Gita it says, Yam Yam Vapi Svaram Bhavam. So whatever that verse talks about, whatever we remember at the time of death, that state we will attain. So we've watched like some movies of reincarnation where some person becomes a dog because maybe they thought of a dog in their previous life. So one may think, okay, that's fine, but we don't know if that dog is going to be born in a country where they eat the dogs. There are some countries in Asia where they eat the dogs. So this human form of life is very rare because it comes to us, as Bhagavad Gita states, that after there's an evolutionary cycle and there's 8,400,000 species of life, and they're all different categories. There's certain number of tree and plant bodies, certain number of sea creatures and insects, and then there's 400,000 types of human bodies. So just like we have some people who are very primitive, so their consciousness is not really that developed. And then we see Prabhupada mentions in this purport about the heavenly planets, where their consciousness is much higher, and their degree of happiness is much more than what we experience like in this lower planets. But at the same time, in all the forms of life, whether we are down in the lower planets, like some people also come from cultures where we can understand, like there's the demoniac class, the demons and the demigods, and the heavens and the hellish planets, and there's people who rule over those different planets. But in any form of life, whether it's from the lowest, like even if one is in an ant body, right up to the highest planet in the heavenly kingdom, even up to Brahma Loka. So there's different planets, and one can elevate one's consciousness to go up or down. But it's just like Prabhupada mentions, it's like a merry-go-round. You keep going round and round and round, and it never stops. So that's the cycle of birth and death. So there's birth, death, old age and disease. We go through these things, we can't escape it. Even if one, like we have the Buckingham Palace, and we have the king and the queen, and they're enjoying very nice facilities and they are very wealthy. But it's not that they're immune to birth, death, old age and disease. They also get old, they get sick. So no one can escape this. So we try to aspire for some material opulence. But these four things, in the human form of life, we need to question that, how can I get out of how can I escape these four things? So there's other planets. There's a planet above the heavenly kingdom. So the heaven is not the goal. There's some planet which is above heaven, where there's no birth, death, old age and disease. And we live a life of eternity, knowledge and bliss. So as the spirit soul, we are occupying this, we are actually the spirit soul, and we are occupying this body. So I'm in a female Indian body, and some, like this, we have a soul that's in the tree body, or a soul that's in an Australian male body, or a female in an Italian body, like that. So we have people from all living entities in all different species, male, female, like that. So whatever body we attain, like we are the soul that is in the body. So the soul's nature is that it's eternal, knowledgeable and blissful. So even when we die, the soul, in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada mentions how the soul cannot be cut, it can't be made wet, it can't be destroyed. So we are eternal living beings, and that's why we are seeking, people have these plastic surgery and makeup and that, because we want to be youthful, we want to live eternally, and also we're trying to extend our life. Like we heard about Walt Disney, where he tried, he put his head in cryogenic, what's the word? Cryogenic. And he's thinking that, okay, some cure will be found in the future so that his body can be, he can be brought back to life. But the human body, the nature of the body is that it decays. We see that even we have some nice fresh vegetables, but it has a lifespan. So the material nature has a lifespan, but in the spiritual world, everything's eternal, youthful and blissful. Like we see in these paintings up here, The spiritual world is not some puff of smoke that some people think, oh, it's just like we are floating in the sky. So the spiritual world is the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So whatever is in the spiritual world, there's relation. Like here in the material world, we have relationships, loving relationships, and there's activity and there's enjoyment. But in the material world, it's a perverted reflection, just like we look on a lake and the tree looks like it's upside down. So in the material world, it's a perverted reflection. We think that we are trying to enjoy material nature for our own enjoyment, just like Prabhupada mentions in this verse that we're trying to go to other planets like Mars, and we are trying to find ways where we can live on those planets. But we are trying to exploit this material nature. But when we understand that everything belongs to God, everything belongs to Krishna, then it's not that we don't have to, we can't enjoy in the material world. We see many devotees who are living nicely. They have careers. They have everyone's different. We engage according to our nature. We have some people who are lawyers, doctors, teachers, and some people like to farm the land. So we have different occupations. Some people are building, but they engaging their nature for Krishna's service. Like we have Mahamantra Prabhu. He's a builder. So he's building so many things on so many buildings on the farm, school, and in the near future we're going to have a new temple. So he's using his nature in the service of God. So and then earning the livelihood also. But at the same time, we live in the world, but we understand that we are not of this world. We are spiritual by nature. So while we're living in the world, we have family and we want to exchange loving relationships. But in the center, we put God, we put Krishna in the center, and then we are happy. Then we understand that actually I'm doing this as a service to God, and whatever ability and whatever strength I have is coming from God. So man proposes and God disposes. So we have our plans, but Krishna has his plans. So when we understand that sometimes things may not go according to our plans, then we don't become despondent. We see that okay, there's a greater plan. Just like in this whole Srimad Bhagavatam, it was spoken because there's a great king and he was cursed to die within 7 days, and he's so opulent and everything. So he saw the hand of the Lord in this so-called calamity, and he took advantage of that opportunity. Okay, now I can retire. He did his duty nicely, even though he's a devotee of the Lord, but he was given the service of running the whole kingdom. So he did that nicely for the service of the Lord. And when the time came, he saw, okay, now Krishna's, some external arrangement has been made, so I can go back home, back to Godhead. So also in the material world, we have our duties. It's not that, okay, now I'm a devotee of God, I can just, just float around and do, God will do everything, Krishna will do everything for me. No, we also have our duties and we have our nature. So we engage that in service to God, just like Radha. He's a very expert cook and she loves cooking for the deities. So she cooks up big feasts and pizzas and she does catering. So she's also earning some livelihood, and then she's also doing it as devotional service. And then she works at the Krishna village at the reception, and also is very kind and friendly to everyone. So, then people will think, okay, what are you practicing? Why are you so happy? You're engaging your nature in Krishna's service. And we have like Ajita Prabhu, he's the manager here, and he's showing by his personal example. He comes to the morning program and he chants his rounds and he encourages the devotees to engage according to our nature. It's not that we have to fit into a certain square and a certain mold, that, oh, you're a devotee, you have to give up your life, you have to give up your career, your studies, and then join the temple. No, just like Urmila Mataji, she talks about, not everyone can give up life or live in the city and come here, but we can come here and become rejuvenated and see, okay, there's a simple life, actually ultimately in Goloka Vrindavan, that's the life we're living, it's the village life, and everyone's that life is there. So we engage according to our nature, and we put Krishna in the center. So whatever we're doing, it doesn't matter whether we are cleaning the toilets or doing the paraphernalia service, whatever service we do for the Lord, then we do it nicely, and then we'll see we find a certain peace in our life and we are happy. But we're struggling, people who don't understand the purpose of life. This human form of life is very rare, so there's a hard struggle for existence, trying to get this certain material enjoyment, and then there's exploitation, we're trying to be one above someone else and put others down in order to go up materially. And maybe someone may not do that, and they're very kind and they are living the life of serving others, but even then if God is not in the center, then it's based on sentiment. At the end of life, the person's also going to die and come back on the Ferris wheel, round and round again. You did some good activity, you get a higher birth, and then you finish up your good credits, just like you have a bank account, you have so much money, and then you're not working to also earn money, but you're living off like your good karma, your good karma and your money. Then you're just kind of finishing that up, and then when it's finished, then you don't have anything. And if we've degraded our consciousness by intoxication and illicit sex, and then we don't even have the intelligence and the ability to work and earn that income and live at least somewhat peaceful life. So we don't want to kind of go up and down, make money and then finish it up, and then again someone's working and then Friday night go party and then finish the money, and then again Monday come and then work again, and then what's the goal of life? It's just repeated, going up and down, up and down. So that is not our goal. So our goal is to go back and live our life in such a way that we are always thinking of Krishna, and then we're doing our duty, and externally it may not appear the same for everyone. Prabhupada gave us certain principles that the principles cannot be changed. We follow the 4 regulated principles, which are no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, and no intoxication. So those 4 things are essential in the human form of life, because that's the basic human platform. If we eat meat, then that's taking away from compassion, because we are living off enjoying by killing another living entity who has family as well. And then intoxication, we are dulling our mind, and then if we indulge in intoxication, that takes away from it takes away our intelligence. So just like if we don't eat meat, then we are developing compassion, and if we stop intoxication, then that's we have the 4 pillars. So there's compassion, truthfulness, cleanliness. So intoxication, yes, takes away from cleanliness. You're not keeping your body and your mind clean. And then we have yes, austerity. So that's intoxication was austerity. We don't have the self-control. And then the cleanliness is illicit sex. If we are not following, we get married and then we engage in sex life for producing God-conscious children. So if we are not doing that, then that takes away from the cleanliness. And the 4th one was truthfulness. So what takes away from truthfulness is gambling. Yes. So we are trying to cheat our way into earning money, just like someone buys the lottery ticket, and we're thinking instead of working hard to earn that money, we are trying to cheat the system. So these 4 principles are there. And then we also chant. In this age, we have the golden age, the silver age, bronze, and the iron age. So we are in the iron age, and in different ages there's recommended, like in the golden age it was recommended to we have different ages. So there's meditation, and then some ages there was deity worship, and what was the fourth? Yagyas, fire sacrifices, yes. So in this age we have the chanting of the holy names, which is the process of going back home, back to Godhead, and this is the easiest process in this age. So that's why we chant the holy names of God, the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And by following this process, we are cleaning our heart, just like also we are eating food, vegetables. So even the monkeys and the pigeons, they are eating vegetables, but what's the difference is that we are offering our food to God, and that food becomes blessed and sanctified, and so our heart is becoming cleansed. And by chanting the holy names, because this holy name is coming directly from the spiritual world, it's non-material and it carries the potency. So when we are accepting the holy name and instructions from someone who is following the process, then that potency comes through, because devotion to God, bhakti, comes from the heart of one who has that devotion to our heart. So when we are following this process, we try to also study these books. So that's the key essential item, that we have these 3 checks in our spiritual life. We have Guru, Sadhu. Guru is the spiritual master. We have Sadhu, which are the spiritual teachers, and Shastra, which is the scriptures. So we should always make our decisions in life based on these threefold checks. So by reading the scriptures, we can recognize who is a guru, who is a sadhu, who to follow. Just like Ramai Swami, the other day he was saying that we need to follow the right people. So how do we know someone is the right people? If we don't read the scriptures, then we're thinking, oh, it's we are being sentimental. We're thinking, oh, it's all love and peace, and oh, everyone, let's love and peace, but it's not like that. We need to use our intelligence. Each of us has to be, Prabhupada wanted us all to be, become guru. So it doesn't mean we all have to become like a spiritual teacher, like wear saffron and that. So we can be teachers by our practice, just by our own example, living our life in such a way. So the practical example is, while we are living here, we are walking, we can show by example. If there's some rubbish on the floor, we pick it up and put it in the rubbish bin. We see a light that's on, or we see a fan that's on, we switch it off. So also little children are looking at us. So just by our example, we don't have to be someone so big that we can, be inspiring to someone. We all have the ability to live our life and make a difference in everyone's life by cultivating the spiritual practice. And our purpose is that we want to please Srila Prabhupada, we want to please our spiritual teachers, we want to please Krishna. And when we have that goal in mind, then whatever we do, we do it nicely. And then people become attracted, and then they question that what is my purpose in life. And by doing that, we are giving people opportunity to inquire and get out of this Ferris wheel, this cycle of birth and death, and at least some opportunity to get closer. And even if we don't finish that up in this life, then there's a guarantee that we are not born into a lower species of life where we're just acting according to nature. We don't have that higher intelligence to inquire, who am I, who is God, and what is my relationship with Him, and how to go back home, back to Godhead. So I'll read the translation again. The way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. So just quickly on that purpose. So we are coming from third world countries, some of us, and then we want to live in the first world country. So there's nothing wrong in that, because we don't want to be in the hard struggle for existence, and we want our children to have a better future. But then we need to understand that that's not the ultimate goal, some material happiness, heavenly kingdom. Just like Prabhupada compared Hawaii, like it's like heaven. The weather's perfect. There's so many fruit trees everywhere you go. You don't have to worry about living, you can just pick a fruit and you have some food to eat. So that's not our goal. Yes, we can live in the world and be comfortable, but our ultimate goal is to cultivate our spiritual life, because that's our nature, and go back home, back to Godhead. So we'll end there. If anyone has any questions or comments or corrections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've often wondered how sometimes the soul is given the opportunity to take birth in the human form, which obviously gives them the ability to rediscover Krishna. Sometimes it just appears that it's so wasted, because you've got people who take, who are born as human, but they're just you can't even compare them to an animal, because their behavior is worse than the animal, because the animal at least has a certain function, and they follow that, their nature. Whereas the humans sometimes, I guess it's very apparent, for instance, what's happening in America, the people are rioting, and they're just completely, you even have people who take birth in such a position where they have the ability to be a leader and to facilitate, they're in a leadership role, but you can't even compare them to an animal, because they're completely So how are these souls able to come to a human form when they're at that level already, where they're going to live their human life as a complete narcissist, or so degraded where they're abusive, and that's often been a question, that something that I've wondered how that happens, how they end up in that human form. So that's one question. And then the other thing was, you were saying about first world countries in this world that are so heavenly. They appear to be heavenly, but actually they're actually a place of suffering as any other country. It has a beautiful film covering it. The external is beautiful. You look a little bit deep in the suffering, stains everywhere. And the nature also of the material world is that people are so abusive to Mother Nature and to each other that a first world country can very easily become a third world country within a lifetime. We see that happening. So that was my question and comment.
Thank you for that. My understanding is that we have the evolutionary cycle. We have 8,400,000 species of life. So the spirit soul gradually goes through the evolutionary cycle and then gets to the human form of life. And then in the human form of life, the law of karma is very subtle. We can't really judge by externals, because we see sometimes someone is doing so many bad things. Like there's a saying, why do bad things happen to good people? And sometimes we see good things happening to bad people. So it's because of what they did in their previous life. So they reach a human form of life, and then they may have done some good things. So they are elevated. They come back again to the human form of life. I think there's one verse in Bhagavad Gita which says that the ones who are pious And those who are even more pious and have done devotional service, they are born in a family of devotees. But for those who are born in materially opulent life, we all have a choice. So they are choosing to degrade their life. They're riding on that pious credit, on the bank balance. They're riding on it, but it's going to finish up because they're not building good credits on it. They're not earning money to come out. So then they become degraded. So it's also, as you said, that a first world country can also become a third world country. So the collective consciousness, association is so powerful. That's happening there in America. So are people going to join the bandwagon and then do the same thing? So in the human form of life, we have to be so careful who we associate with, and that's why also the human form of life is we can discern that who am I going to associate with. If someone is a drunkard, we associate with that drunkard. Eventually, we'll also become a drunkard. Just like someone wants to cultivate some athletic ability and they're training for some sports, then they associate with someone who's also training, and then they both kind of lifting themselves up. So we can choose what we want to do. Even in material life, we see someone wants to be an accountant, then they join what's it called? They join a firm, and then there's a group of under those all the attorneys go under, and then just like there's some tradespeople, they fall under a certain thing. There's a certain word. Yeah, it's like an organization, and all the lawyers go under that organization. It's a certain word where we join that, so we register under that. So all the lawyers, when there's some gathering, then they all come together, or just like all the mechanics, and they have some workshop or some new technology has come up, then you go there. So when you're associating with people in that field that you want to develop, you gain more knowledge and you get elevated. But if your consciousness, if we choose to associate with the lower natures and people who are just living, trying to enjoy without making sacrifice, then we degrade ourselves. So the human form of life, we can choose to degrade ourselves. And also the laws of karma are very subtle. We don't know what someone did to enjoy opulence in this human form of life. But it also is like a bank balance. We can finish it up, and then so that's why. But we don't want to also build pious credits and then keep making money and then go down and up, go up and down. That's why whatever activity as practitioners of Krishna consciousness, of God consciousness, what we're doing is that we are not building even good karma. That's not our goal, to even build up pious activities. Whatever good we are doing, we're doing as service to God, which is actually separating us, like a coconut. When it becomes dry, it gets separated from the shell. So we want to separate ourselves from this material world. We don't want to even build up, we don't want to definitely build up impious credits, but we also don't want to build up pious credits. We want to get out of this material world. So whatever activities we are doing, it's not that we are going to be a loser by not developing pious activities, because we are developing transcendental pious activities, which is different. That we are becoming free, separated from this material world, and we are on our way back home, back to Krishna. Any other? Thank you for the good point. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai.